The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase in 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, known as North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
Welcome to Our Hamilton, Our Vote, the 2022 municipal election debates presented live by Cable 14 in partnership with the Hamilton Spectator. I'm Mike Fortune, and I will be your moderator. For this debate, we invited all of the candidates for councillor in Ward 9 to join us. Here in studio, we have the incumbent, Brad Clark, Walt Jasnewitz, and Peter Lanza. The fourth candidate, Muhammad Naeem, did not respond to any of our repeated invitations. As usual, our format includes 2 minutes each for the candidates to introduce themselves. Then, our local media panel will be posing them some questions. Viewers at home, hey, if you're watching us live, please tweet us at Cable14 or email election@cable14.com to share any questions you'd like to ask these candidates. And finally, we will wrap up the hour with an open forum for the candidates to question and respond to each other. All the candidates, they were provided with copies of the debate format in advance for this evening, so they are well aware of how the hour will unfold. And of course, I will be doing my best to keep us on track with what's expected for each section. That said, Hamilton, let's get started with our 2-minute introductory statements. If needed, the candidates will be getting a 10-second warning before I call time. Up first, candidate Brad Clark.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Cable 14, and to all the local media for hosting this debate, and to you, the viewers, for tuning in. In 2018, I promised to make the state of repair of our Ward 9 infrastructure a priority. To that end, we have seen an unprecedented investment in the ward. Here's what we accomplished. 15 roads and bridges were rebuilt. 13.7 kilometers of sidewalk have been replaced, 1,928 trees planted, 34 floral traffic islands installed, 2 flood assessments are underway, we added community center, safety zones, and we expanded the community center and Valley Park Library. Klein Park was rebuilt and the new Valley Skate Park is set to open. I am committed to continuing to improve the state of repair of our infrastructure, including our aging playground infrastructure. I am known for my research, and I'm not afraid to ask tough questions, and they call me the process guy due to my extensive knowledge of the Municipal Act and our bylaws, policies, and procedures. I believe strongly in the public's right to know. I will advocate for more transparency in government, and I will continue to lead by example with civility, respect, and dignity. I will work with residents, school councils, traffic staff, and police to improve pedestrian safety. I still oppose the elimination of area rating for transit. It is a myth that eliminating area rating will generate new revenue. It is simply a tax shift. If it is eliminated, taxes will most definitely increase in the suburbs. I'll continue improving public transit and other services that will benefit you, the residents of Ward 9. Please visit my webpage, bradclarkforward9.ca. On October 24th, I ask for your vote to continue getting things done. Thank you.
Candidate Clark, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. We will continue to move on with candidate Walt Jasnewitz. Please take it away.
Thank you, Mike. Cable 14 and Hamilton Community News and CH Television for this opportunity. Thank you, my fellow candidates, for choosing to put yourself into this public forum. My name is Walt Jasnewitz, and I am a husband, a father of adult twin daughters. I immigrated to Canada with my parents from Poland at the age of 8. My father was a forester, a factory worker, and my mother a hospital pharmaceutical employee. I have 40 plus years in the broadcast satellite IT industry. I built a diverse network access point that would give Hamilton an internet point of presence and the beginning of a public-private cloud on 10th Road East in Ward 9. This is the toughest challenge that the rural and urban wards of Hamilton have been facing. Affordable, consistent connectivity. I have the understanding and the background to bring affordable internet connectivity to every home, farm, business, and proud of my work of connecting our Indigenous Africa and in Middle East. As well, I enjoy my land in Ward 9 to provide fresh vegetables that my wife distributes to a number of food shares. Now, as a semi-retired telecom internet executive, my attention is turning to politics and the deficiencies that I witness daily across Ward 9. I have been approached by a number of residents with respect to fresh, safe water, drinking and cooking. For some residents are bringing in potable drinking water. These same residents are concerned about continued quality of their family wells and the lack of the water pressure in the priorities in both rural and urban.
Candidate Jasnewitz, thank you so much. Time has run out. We will continue to move on with our third candidate in studio, Mr. Peter Lanza.
Thank you. Good evening, City of Hamilton and residents of Ward 9. Albert Einstein famously said, "Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted in important affairs." I'm sitting here today because we've all lost trust in the City Council. We're tired of the scandals and the cover-ups that give our great city a bad name. My name is Peter Lanza, and I ran for council in 2018. I didn't win, but I didn't quit either. And I won't quit on you. I've been blessed to have met and been endorsed by our previous councillor, Doug Connolly. More importantly, he's not only become a mentor, but a friend. We've all heard of Sewergate. 24 billion liters of sewage dumped into the Chedoke Creek. Estimates say up to 150 million to eventually cure the polluted waterway. The Red Hill Valley inquest. Councillor Clark assured us it was supposed to come in around 1 or 2 million. However, it's already ballooned to 28 million and still counting. How could we address mental health? How many affordable homes could we construct with all that money, and even address the proposed 6.9% tax increase that we're all going to see? Councillor Clark admittedly lied to senior staff at City Hall, has been sanctioned by the Integrity Commissioner, and had his actions called beyond unprofessional. On several occasions, he claimed conflicts of interest, been unable to represent our interest due to these conflicts he's brought upon himself. I want to improve our financial situation, not keep secrets, always be transparent, tell the truth, and bring dignity back to the role of councillor. I pledge to be strong, yet collaborative. Please check my website at peterlanza.ca, and please consider me. Thank you.
To all of our candidates, thank you each for your opening statements, and we will continue on now with our local media panel. With us for this debate this evening are Kevin Werner for the Hamilton Spectator and Hamilton Community News, along with Sean Cowan from CHCH News. Each of our reporters will be choosing a candidate to answer a question, and then the other candidates, if they like, can also respond. Please, to the other candidates, if you'd like to respond, make sure you indicate to us and we will get you involved. All of your responses will be limited to approximately 1 minute. I'll give a warning when time has run out. Our first question comes from Kevin Werner. Take it away.
Good evening, candidates. My first question goes to Mr. Lanza. So you mentioned the tax increase, possibility of a 7% tax increase, plus there will be a possibility of increases in water and sewer rates. I'm going to ask you, how will you make that more affordable or reduce them for the average taxpayer?
Right off the bat, we just wasted $28 million on an inquiry. Although necessary, there was a less expensive way of doing it. The city itself has an ombudsman or an auditor that said he could have done it for in and around $300,000. Ward 9 contributes huge to the taxes of the city, and I don't believe we get adequate attention. I think if we look for, find the waste, and be honest, I think that should address your question.
Thank you for your response. Would candidates Jasnewitz or Clark like to get involved with this? Candidate Clark?
We just begin the budgeting process, and what our staff do is they look at the current inflation rates, they look at the current bills that they expect to come forward in the new term of council. And what the budget process does is it quite literally goes line by line, and we look at every single possibility of finding savings to lower those numbers. And as Mr. Werner is well aware, that historically, while the numbers come in high at the very beginning of the budget process, we usually find the ways and the means to bring it down to usually around the 2% level.
Yes, candidate Jasnewitz.
Well, I think with $28 million, I think Ward 9 would have, especially the rural side, would have enjoyed water and gas and internet by now. So I would, whether it becomes budgets or anything, the culture of the city has to change in the way that we're doing things.
Candidate Lanza, final word before we move on?
No, I agree. I think we have to look at the costs of these. I mean, $28 million is just to start. What if it balloons to 38 or 48? Where does it end? We have to learn to be and have responsible spending in government.
Thank you all very much for that response to the first question. We'll continue on with our media panel from CHCH. Sean Cowan.
Thank you. So my first question is for Walt. You mentioned a little bit about high-speed internet, making that a priority for some people. I know a lot of people all across Hamilton have been waiting for that for a long time. High-speed, affordable internet, how do you plan specifically on doing that? Do you have a timeline?
Well, I've always, actually, if you could, after this particular debate, I can probably show you how I've built it. So the timeline is yesterday. COVID was quite an example of how we do not have infrastructure that is dealing with the needs of the people of Ward 9 and Hamilton. Not to mention that today the internet works quite differently. It goes through Hamilton, and just picture it going through Hamilton into the Toronto Internet Hotel and then coming back via, let's say, the Lakeshore, pretty much the way you would be driving. So what our proposal is to build the point of presence so that we can create a digital economy and cut into the internet so that we can be connected directly to Chicago, so we don't have this Toronto loop. And anything that's Canadian is connected directly to Toronto. So to provide diversification of internet, and then we wouldn't have the Rogers situations like we've experienced. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Anybody else like to jump in on internet connectivity in Ward 9? Yes, Candidate Clark.
I appreciate Mr. Jasnewitz's input into the matter, given his vast experience in the IT sector. I can tell you that right now in Ward 9, both Cogeco and Bell are installing fiber optic cabling for high-speed internet in the urban area, and Bell committed to bringing in high-speed internet to the rural area, which has been something that has been needed for many years. My understanding is that the federal government was supporting them in their bid to do that.
Final word to you, Mr. Jasnewitz.
Bell, Cogeco, and Rogers are not the internet, Councillor Clark. The internet is the internet, and I'm bringing the internet here, not Bell and Rogers. Bell and Rogers delivers the internet. We need the heart of the internet in this city to create a digital economy that we deserve, so that it could set off the industry taxes that we're not getting right now.
Okay. Thank you all very much for the response to that particular question. We will continue to move on now. He's back from Community News and the Hamilton Spectator. Of course, I'm talking about our good friend, nice to have him back here, Mr. Kevin Werner.
It's always nice to be here, Mr. Fortune. Walt, you were on the Police Services Board. I'm wondering, there's been a lot of talk of defunding the police and the police budget. Will you, can you reduce the police services budget to make it more efficient and cut out any wasteful spending?
Well, I'm proud of my work, as I've told you in my interview with you on the police board. I don't understand the defund aspect of different groups. The chief that we have right now is a great chief. I was part of the committee that hired him as a deputy chief. I support Frank with a lot of different things, but the one thing that I don't support is what I've witnessed with LGBTQ community members that we've had, and what they've had to experience and endure in Gage Park. That was just, in my mind, was something that I can't even talk about today. And when I was on the board, that with the community members and everything else, I believe that we could have actually alleviated a lot of what happened there. As for budgets, I've seen the police services budget go from $150 million to $170 million. And quite frankly, yeah, I went line by line, and I'm a businessman, so I understand what's going on. But our community public safety has no price on it. And I believe that it is very important that we keep that front line equipped with everything they need so they can actually provide that to this great city of ours.
Thank you for that response. We'll get back to you. Candidate Lanza?
I agree with Walt. I 100% support the police. Most recently on the news, we've just seen the shooting make its way down the Queenie, where our police proudly and bravely did their job. Can we imagine? And let them know they are the heroes.
Very well said.
Would you like to have a final word? I see no one else wants to jump in.
Well, I just have to say that our police service is probably one of the best, if not in the country, probably in the world. And I still stand by those words.
Thank you for that. I did see Candidate Clark get his hand up last second. We'll let you in here.
Thanks, Mike. The defund police movement, I have never supported it. Quite frankly, the police department in Hamilton has done a remarkable job working with social workers, creating the Social Navigator program, which Walter knows well about, our crisis outreach teams that go out to assist people who are in mental distress and may be a danger to themselves or others. It's important to know that, the police officers are the first ones to go into a building when there's a shooting. I don't see anyone else running in. They're usually running out. And the police officers put their lives on the line every single day. And I admire them for it. I think we have an excellent police service in Hamilton. And I'm proud of the work that they do to protect our residents.
Thank you very much for that. I think we're all clear now. We can move on. If you want to get in on the question, jump in a little quicker. Hey, we've had a number of questions submitted by our viewers, and thank you so much for those. They've been tweeting us at Cable 14, or they've been emailing us at election@cable14.com. This particular question says, there is currently a proposal for the City of Hamilton to host the 2030 Commonwealth Games. Would you be supportive of a public vote so residents can have a say in making this decision? It does say it's open to all candidates, so you all have your response. However, we will start with Candidate Clark.
Thank you very much. So where we are currently in the process is we have signed on to be a part of the bidding process, which enables us to meet with the federal government, the provincial government, and discuss what the costs are going to be for the games, what the costs are going to be for the city of Hamilton. Until we know those numbers, it's premature for me to say whether or not I would support the games going forward or not. We really need to understand what the true costs are to the municipality moving forward.
Candidate Lanza.
I would agree. I would support the games. However, I would look at the costs. Hamilton now has huge infrastructure problems. We're looking at fixing a lot of things, and to spend a lot of money on the games might not be fiscally responsible at this time. But again, once we look at the costs and we know where we are and we know what the federal and provincial governments are going to kick in, then yes, of course, we would support it.
Candidate Jusnewitz, would you like to get involved?
Well, it's kind of hard to figure out what to support and what not to support. The Commonwealth Games are obviously very important to the city, but so are sewers and water. So is infrastructure. I know that when we talk, this word infrastructure has been overused. People gloss over when I talk about infrastructure at the doors. People have a hard time trying to figure out, but they do understand that they want clean water and they want heat, and they also want to make sure that their toilets work.
Yes. Thank you for that response. Candidate Clark, last word to you.
And thank you for that, Mike. It's important to recognize that the City of Hamilton also has a real challenge when it comes to geared to income housing and supportive housing. And so what the council has indicated is they want to ensure that if the Commonwealth Games come to Hamilton, that the legacy of those games would be an increase in supportive housing and affordable housing in this community.
Thank you to each of you for those responses. Back to our prestigious media panel. Sean Cowan, he's back.
Thank you. Peter, you mentioned at the beginning remarks, affordable housing, some money that the city currently spent could have been spent on affordable housing. What does that look like in Ward 9, and where would it be built?
Right now they're saying shelters are over capacity. There's more people requiring shelter service than there are beds. Housing advocates have urged the city for years to address the crisis in affordable housing. To start, Hamilton, I think, should provide incentives to the builders that are going to build affordable housing and help us in Ward 9 with that. Hats to Hamilton Alliance for Tiny Shelters is also a great place to start.
Response?
I think the question was about Ward 9 specifically. We actually have affordable housing being built in Hamilton right across from Saltfleet High School. So it's important that in Ward 9, for example, we have a large seniors population that needs additional rental housing. We have, contrary to popular belief, there are people who are really challenged with paying their bills every day. And so I support the affordable housing that we're bringing into Ward 9. I continue to support and advocate for additional rental housing for seniors who desperately need it in the ward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, yes, please, Candidate Jusnewitz. No, it's fine.
I think we should actually also consider the affordability and how realistic that is, and I think it should be more geared to income.
Thank you very much for that response. Candidate Lanza, if you like, final word goes to you.
Good, thank you.
You're good? Okay. Hey, the viewer questions continue to come in. They are being submitted either by Twitter at Cable14 or emailing election@cable14.com. This one says, with City Hall now supporting a hybrid environment where city councilors can either attend meetings in person or remotely, what are your plans for how you will participate in council meetings? And I'm seeing this question is being directed to candidate Walt Jusnewitz.
Well, that sounds like something I heard from previous councilors. So I think you should be there in person. And I think, I plan to be there in person.
Candidate Clark?
Yeah, ever since City Hall was reopened, I have been present in City Hall for the meetings. I can't explain why there is such large numbers of councillors staying at home rather than coming back to City Hall. We're expecting our staff to be back at City Hall. One would expect that they would lead by example and be present at City Hall.
Candidate Lanza?
I believe we need to be there every single day. I think we have to work with the best and the brightest in their respective fields, work with the staff, be there in City Hall. And I mean, virtual, I think the pandemic is over. I think we're in a different stage than we were a few years ago, and we all need to get back to where we were.
And final word will go to Walt.
I think real time is what we're talking about, gentlemen. And I find that the virtual side of the world is not always necessarily in real time. And being face to face and talking to people physically is real time.
Thank you all for those responses. We got time for more media questions. With that said, Kevin Werner, he's back.
Never fails, like a bad penny. Mr. Clark, one of the issues that seems to be the elephant in the room for Ward 9 is Ephrata Growth District. I'm wondering how you will be able to include the public in formulating and designing and ultimately constructing the Ephrata Growth District.
Thank you for that, Mr. Warner. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that when I was elected in 2018, the Ephrata Growth District was the only area in the city of Hamilton that was designated for development. No place else in the city were we looking at development. So I pushed back on that, and I argued that the MCR, the Municipal Comprehensive Review that they were doing, should be citywide. I also argued that the secondary planning process that they had started in Ward 9 was premature because we had not established where we're going. In the end, council, by a large majority, agreed to freeze the urban boundary expansion the way it is now. So in Ephrata, it's protected from that development that you're speaking of, and we will be looking at developing within the urban boundary as opposed to expanding the urban boundary broadly into the Ephrata area. But thank you for the question.
Candidate Lanza.
You've closed the boundary. It's a done deal there. Now we just have to manage it. I've read that we're looking at duplexes, triplexes, or even a fourplex right next door to your house. The province, however, still has to weigh in on a lot of this, and the real issue of all this is going to be the consequences for the residents.
It's important to do our research and read legislation. Ward 9 is very unique. Ward 9 is a virtually totally planned area. So every subdivision in Ward 9 has a secondary plan. And because they have a secondary plan, under this current planning policy, triplexes and fourplexes, if they wish to do that in Ward 9, they literally have to do a rezoning application. They have to have the public consultation with the local neighbors, as Mr. Lanza has spoken to, and seek council approval. So Ward 9 is unique in that we have secondary plans right across the ward. And so the triplexes and fourplexes do not have an as-of-right approval process built into the system in Ward 9.
I don't believe that we should have triplexes or fourplexes right next door to us. If you've invested in a home in Ward 9, you know what the parking is like, you know what the congestion in the streets are like. If you work and you take that Red Hill, you know how congested it can be. I think expansion into the urban boundary and to talk to the province is the best way to go.
Final word to you, if you like, Candidate Clark.
Well, I'm a little bit confused because residents are telling that Mr. Lanza has been supportive of the city's position to freeze the urban boundary, but then I'm also hearing from developers that he's supportive of developing in Ephrata. So he clearly has indicated here today that he supports the development into Ephrata.
We will give you a chance to respond.
I have absolutely no idea where he got this information from. I've never said that I've been both ways on it. I'm not flip-flopping on anything. I believe that we should have expansion.
Candidate Jasnewitz, you want to jump in?
Well, hey, listen, I had a business that got pushed out of 50 Green Mountain Road, and I had to move 10 kilometers east because of developers and everything that Councillor Clark just read about in the legislation there. So, you know, I'm kind of, when it comes to understanding the growth of the city, I guess you got to ask a developer first.
Thank you for that. We're all good? Okay, we're going to continue on, folks. Sean Cowan, CHCH, your question, please.
This question is for Brad.
Bless you.
So recent provincial decision rules, regulation, $400 a day for seniors to stay in a hospital. Obviously, it's provincial, but it affects municipal level. To all the seniors that have no place to go, they're in the hospital. All of the long-term care facilities are full, I think all across Hamilton. What do you think the solution is for that? I know it's provincial, but it affects people in your ward.
Well, the solution would have been to build additional long-term care homes a while back. I can recall a previous Conservative government had plans to build a number of long-term care homes in Hamilton. They were subsequently cancelled when that pendulum swings back and forth between the parties, and now we're paying the price. I acknowledge that the hospitals are really stressed out. I was speaking with Mr. Lanza in the green room before he came out here, and his son's a nurse, and we were talking about the absolute stress that nurses are under and the challenges because they've lost so many of their colleagues who are no longer working, and they're serving many, many more patients. So I understand that the province had to do something. I think there needs to be some flexibility and assistance to seniors who find themselves in that situation, as opposed to literally kicking them out the door kind of thing.
Mr. Lanza.
I do have a son in nursing, and I have some first-hand knowledge about the issues, and no, it's not getting better. We need to demand more help from the province and stop making excuses. We have to stop passing the buck, and the city needs to look after the city's needs first.
I also would like to add to here, maybe not so much into the long-term care side of this, but there are developers out there that are building adult buildings, senior buildings, that are, for whatever reason, are having trouble with occupancy permits. So the people moving into these dwellings have to rent, and that money is not reimbursable. So I think what we've got to look at from a permitting standpoint is why aren't these buildings and these developers working on these occupancy permits so these people could move in to the homes that they're buying?
It is important to recognize, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, the excellent work and the service that Macassa Lodge and the Wentworth Lodge provide the city's 2 municipal long-term care homes. They do a remarkable job, and I sing their praises as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you to each of you for the response to that particular question. We will continue on as more viewers are submitting theirs. Again, they're doing so by tweeting at Cable14 or emailing election@cable14.com. Feel free to jump in if you'd like your question asked to these candidates. Take Back the Night took place last week. Crisis support line calls to Hamilton Sexual Assault Centre keep increasing, with wait times for survivor-centered counseling services at 5 months. If elected, what will you do to ensure survivors of sexual violence in Hamilton can receive timely supports from their local community-based sexual assault center? Will you advocate for increased permanent funding? And I see they would like candidate Lanza to start off.
Yes, I would. I think public health is underfunded. I think nursing, obviously, is underfunded. I don't have all the answers. What I do know is the city does hire a lot of the best and the brightest in their respective fields, whether it's from public health, planning, development, or wherever. We should listen to them and learn from them. Then take the ideas back to council. We would look at our needs, our budget, what's absolutely necessary, and then prioritize without infighting or secrets, and look after the needs of our residents.
Mike, I think it's important that we acknowledge that the advice that we received from our city staff, which council took, was to add additional dollars to the shelter system for women who find themselves in that situation. You know, when there's intimate violence in a home, it is brutal. And the real fear is that it's going to accelerate into something much worse than just that violence. And so the mothers and their children, they need to be able to get out of that home. They need to find a safe place in shelters within the city of Hamilton, and we have provided additional supports and funding for those shelters. Thank you.
I don't think we have enough for what we need. I think we need to seriously look at what we have to do to get there. And I don't have the answer right now, but I wish I did.
Said it before and I'll say it again. We need to demand more help from the province. Stop making excuses. Stop passing the buck and look after the city's needs.
Thank you all very much for that. I'm being told that due to time, we get to have the media back one more time. Kevin Werner, he's back.
Yet again.
Aren't we lucky?
Jeez. My question's to Walt. You know, well, he's feeling lonely. You know, for years, Hamilton Council and the city have been criticized so much for lack of transparency, lack of trust, going in behind closed doors too many times. I'm asking, what will you do to regain that trust of the residents of Hamilton?
Well, I've always been very open and transparent. Being a councillor and under the Municipal Act, I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of restrictions like I learned with the Police Services Act. As much as I wanted to be transparent and open there, I think it's going to be, but I'm going to do my very best to bring in engagement of the citizens or the stakeholders of Ward 9. That with the decisions that are going on right now, which I believe are primarily not including the actual citizens and basically our stakeholders.
We'll get to candidate Lanza first.
I know there is the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and sometimes, unfortunately, some councillors take advantage of it. Things are hidden from us, closed doors, and it shouldn't be like that. We should all know what's going on all the time. That needs to stop, and it needs to stop immediately.
Thank you, Mike. When I came back onto council in 2018, one of the first things I did was successfully move a motion that would create a real-time public disclosure of any sewage discharges into the natural environment. So that's now up and running. We have a web page that supports it. We issue press releases whenever there's a discharge. That's a part of the transparency. I also moved a motion that staff reports would separate out any legal comment that was in the staff report and put that in a separate legal report. Therefore, the staff report would be public and the legal report would remain confidential. That was approved and that's underway now. And the last thing that I did with regards to increasing transparency was to successfully move a motion to create a routine dissemination of records. And so what we have now created is a web page on the site where routine records, permits that have been issued, all these different records in all different divisions are now available on the web page for the public to see without going through a Freedom of Information request. So we are improving transparency as we go through this process because of my own motions.
Final word to you, candidate Jusnewitz.
Well, I'm going to ask transparency. I've learned that there was $2 million given to councillors just before the election to spend on different things that have gone on. And I just, you know, as a taxpayer and stakeholder of Ward 9, I never really figured out how it was. And then when I tried to actually look for it, I couldn't find out. So maybe I should ask Mr. Clark whether that is true.
This is an open forum question, so what we will do, we'll give you a chance to respond, and Mr. Jusnewitz, if you would like to ask that question again during the open forum, you're more than welcome to. I'm being told we have to move on, okay?
Thank you.
All right, good stuff. Sean Cowan, CHCH, your question, please.
All right. Mr. Jusnewitz, I've been saying your first name because I'm having trouble pronouncing your last name.
Yeah.
My apologies. So I'll just call
Just-
you Walt again.
Just Newitz.
All right. I've been chatting with some residents of Ward 9 on social media over the past couple hours. One reoccurring theme that keeps coming up is police presence, more police presence in that ward. Do you think there needs to be more police presence?
I think there's never enough police presence. It's whether the budget allows it. My property is on the border of the Niagara region in Grimsby. I think there should be more police presence, and if I become councillor, I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. And fire. To have a half an hour responses is something that is hard. We have Division 2, and I guess Division 3 is the part. Division 2 is the division that responds to there. That's like on the other side of Centennial. So I'm going to do as much as I can to address that.
We'll move to Brad, and then we'll have Peter respond.
Thank you, Mike. We have seen a rash of vehicle break-ins and even home break-ins in Ward 9. When these reports are come into my office, I immediately report them to Chief Bergen, who is very quick to have a superintendent assign police to patrol those areas. So we have seen an increase in police presence to deal with those issues. They're not always present. These gangs that are doing these types of break-in and enters, they seem to hop all over the city to try to avoid the police. But Chief Bergen and his staff have been excellent in increased police presence for speeding as well as break-in enters and crimes.
I'm going to disagree with Mr. Clark. I don't think that there's been an increase in police presence. I was just at Shoppers the other day. There was a few seniors in front of me, and what they said is, you know what, we have to come out now. They said as it starts to get darker earlier, we don't leave the house at night. They said we just don't feel safe, and I understand that. And there has been a lot of break-ins, and a lot of us in Ward 9 that are there, we know that no matter when you look or when you go around, there hasn't been an increase in police presence, and we need to fix this.
Final word to candidate Jusnewitz, if he likes.
Well, you know, you could always, I can believe that people feel unsafe. But at the same time, we have to be there for them so that we could make them safe.
Okay. To our candidates, that's all the time we have for our media panel. We'd like to thank them very much, both to Sean Cowan and, of course, Kevin Werner. Thank you so much. It is now time to get to our open forum, where the candidates have a minute to direct a question to other candidates. That candidate will have a chance to respond, and then we will open up the floor for any further discussion around that particular comment or question. I'll let you know if our time requires us to move on. We drew numbers ahead of our broadcast to determine the order for this segment. Brad Clark, you're up first.
Thank you very much. My question would be to Mr. Lanza, continuing with our earlier conversation with regards to the Alfreda Growth District. One of the things that I did was I successfully got support to have the largest mail-in consultation in the history of the city of Hamilton. 18,000 responses came in, and overwhelmingly, the response from residents was they did not support expanding the urban boundary. So I'm trying to understand why it is your position that you wish to develop in Alfreda when the residents have stated very clearly they do not.
I have talked to the residents. I do believe that Hamilton is growing exponentially. As soon as they learned of the possibility of duplexes, fourplexes, parking, the congestion, we are expanding. It has to go someplace. If we go in the city and we go up, it's going to increase congestion, it's going to increase parking, it's going to increase a lot of issues that we already have. If we push out the urban boundary, and again, this is done, the province has to weigh in on this. We have to really spend some time and look at it and speak to the best people, the planning department in our city, and see where we are going to go with this.
But to be fair, I'm asking Mr. Lanza his position because the residents stated unequivocally no to an urban boundary expansion. And Ward 9 is protected from triplexes and fourplexes because we had secondary plans done in all the subdivision. So why is it that you're going to ignore the residents in the city of Hamilton because you know more?
Mr. Clark, I never said I know more. What I said is I don't know everything, that we have to consult the best and the brightest in their respective fields. City planning, the boundary is closed. It's a done deal. We just have to manage what you've done. We have to look at the real issue and the consequences, and the province is going to weigh in on it. It's not going to be my decision.
But it's your decision now in terms of how you state your position. And your position, to be clear, is to develop in Elfrida.
It's my opinion.
No, it's your position. You stated it. You stated very clearly that you would develop Elfrida. And that's not what the residents in Hamilton said. The residents in Hamilton said unequivocally no to the urban boundary expansion. And yet you came in here tonight and said yes to urban boundary expansion.
Would you like to respond?
No.
Okay, we will continue on then. Thank you very much for that discussion. We will continue on, and actually, we're going to give the floor to candidate Lanza. Your question and who you're directing it to, please.
I have a question for Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark declares a conflict of interest on a range of issues, from parks redevelopment, budget increase for Hamilton Community Improvement Plan, review of cannabis location, and amendments to the Urban Hamilton Official Plan. These conflicts are related to his son receiving a business interest with a local developer to open a cannabis store. We as citizens elect a councillor to represent our interests, but it seems due to conflict of interest, there's an inability to do his job. There have been multiple times this has occurred. Mr. Clark, why does this keep happening, and don't we all deserve better, honest, integral representation?
Quite candidly, you are getting honest integrity representation. I immediately took what my son's business interests were to the Integrity Commissioner. The Integrity Commissioner provided me a memorandum of advice specifically on the principle of urban solutions. I have complied with that advice. I declared a disqualifying interest whenever there is an application regarding any land that he owns or any planning applications in his planning firm. That's the advice of the Integrity Commissioner. To not comply with that advice from the Integrity Commissioner would put me in jeopardy. And so that's what I've been doing. The list of things that you indicated I have declared a conflict on seems to be relatively fabricated because I've only dealt with issues with respect to the principle of urban solutions, whether it's his land that he's owned or the application under his planning firm. And that's the law, by the way. We must do this under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Mr. Clark, you've declared a conflict of interest on the issues that I've set out 24 times. I'm here for public service, not for public gain. This has affected your ability to govern effectively. I understand you talk about the Integrity Commissioner. He wrote, "Beyond unprofessional, it is distressing to staff that a member of council may so readily offer such an inappropriate and damaging explanation. You believe in improving transparency and that it's fabricated." 24 times you declared.
Thank you, Mr. Lanza. I think the Integrity Commissioner said it best when they wrote, to his credit, prior to the filing of the complaint, Councillor Clark had already taken remedial steps which an integrity commissioner might contemplate in the course of an investigation, and that he issued repeated, genuine, and heartfelt apologies, removed himself from leadership roles on 3 committees. By his recent actions, Councillor Clark has assumed accountability for his conduct. That's what the integrity commissioner said. Mr. Lanza can twist words and dance and jump around all he wants. The fact of the matter is there is a Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. You may need to declare a conflict of interest one day because your son is a nurse and there's a planning application for a hospital. All around the table, councillors declare conflicts of interest every day, either a disqualifying conflict of interest or a qualifying conflict of interest. I do exactly the same thing, because if I didn't declare that conflict of interest, people like Mr. Lanza would be the first one to jump on me for not complying with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I take my integrity seriously. I have complied every single time with the memorandum of advice that I received from the city's integrity commissioner.
And I'll read it right from the integrity commissioner. Councillor Clark
You don't have to, I just read
contravened
it.
section of the code by maliciously, falsely, negligently, recklessly, or otherwise improperly injuring the professional reputation or ethical reputation of one or more of the city employees. There's somebody dancing here, and it's certainly not me.
Well, and it's not the integrity commissioner, because the integrity commissioner indicated, to his credit, prior to the filing of the complaint, Councillor Clark had already taken remedial steps with an integrity commissioner might contemplate in the course of the investigation, in that he issued repeated, genuine, and heartfelt apologies, removed himself from leadership roles on 3 committees. By his action, Councillor Clark has assumed accountability for his conduct, which is exactly what my residents want. They want councillors to assume accountability for their conduct.
24 times you declared a conflict of interest. Councillors are there to represent the interests. You put yourself in a position where you're not able to do that.
Candidates, we do have to move on. I'm very sorry. Just to make sure we get Walt's question in under time. Walt, take it away.
Sorry, thank you. So, Councillor, I'll change it up a little bit. There's $2 million that was handed out, at least in what I thought, in my opinion, was handed out just before an election. Is that true?
It wasn't handed out. It was money that came from the federal program that council received funding for. It was divided equally amongst the wards, the 15 wards. In Ward 9, there was $2 million. I went to our public works staff and I said, if I have this $2 million, what's the next roads that are on the list that we could include for capital upgrades earlier? They indicated Highland Road in the rural area, and they indicated Gatestone. That was the motion that was put forth. I didn't move anything for political gain. I moved based on staff advice, which is what I followed. But thank you.
But then why didn't that $2 million, why is it so hard to find? Yeah.
It was a part of the overall budget, so it should be there.
Okay, thank you.
Candidate Lanza? You're good. Any further discussion around this? No? Okay. I'm being told we have a couple more minutes, so we will be getting to another question, if the candidates are okay with that. Again, I think we're going to circle back to the Commonwealth Games. If you recall, we had a question about them earlier, and the viewer during the open forum was asking, would you like to all clarify your position specifically on having an opportunity for the general public to have a vote on hosting? Not whether you personally support the games themselves. Brief answers. All 3 of you will get an opportunity. Candidate Jasnewicz.
I think the public, it's their money. It's the taxes that they pay, and I think they have more of a right to have an opinion whether those games are here or not.
I'm going to agree. I think the public do have a right, but City Council, and there's been so much with Sewergate, lawsuits, that we really need to look at our proposed tax increases, what the games are going to cost, what the federal government's going to pitch in, what the provincial government's going to pitch in, and what the actual cost is to the city. I believe in the residents making a decision, but I believe in them making an informed decision.
Thank you. And given that we spent $35,000 to do a mailed-in survey with regards to the urban boundary expansion issue, there's no reason why the City Council couldn't support another survey or plebiscite, if you want to call it, to the residents on this particular issue also.
To all of you, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And unfortunately, our time now has officially wrapped up. To our candidates, once again, they are Brad Clark, Walt Jasnewitz, and Peter Lanza. And of course, Muhammad Naeem, who did not respond to many of our invitations that we sent, is not here. Hamilton, this concludes our Ward 9 debate. Remember, it's our Hamilton, it's our vote, and Election Day, it's coming quick, October 24th. You can find everything you need to know, including a list of all of the candidates running for City Council, as well as the public and Catholic school boards on the City of Hamilton website at hamilton.ca/elections. I can't stress this enough. Please get out and vote, whether in person or by mail-in ballot. You got a couple more days for that option. Then join us that evening for all your local election results. And a reminder that you can find a complete schedule of all of our upcoming election debates on our website at cable14.com/elections. We especially invite you to join us next Tuesday, September 27th, beginning at 7 for the live mayoral debate. If you're watching us live tonight, please stay tuned for the Ward 10 debate coming up at 8:30. But right now, we bring you part 1 of our exclusive sit-down interview with Mayor Fred Eisenberger as he prepares to leave office. I'm Mike Fortune. We will see you again very soon.
Alcoholics Anonymous. For more information, visit aa.org.
Tune into Cable 14 this fall for a fresh take on lifestyle and happenings on Hamilton Life. You can catch me chatting with Hamiltonians from all walks of life and checking out some great spots for food, fashion, and entertainment. Weekdays at 4:30 right here on Cable 14.
There's no greater support than a loved one's embrace. When you participate in the kidney walk or support someone who does, you're showing your loved one that you've got their back. Whether you're counted on for trips to dialysis, for a transplant, or a listening ear, there's no end to the support you give. When you walk, you demonstrate just how endless that support is. Walk in your community on Sunday, September 25th. Register to walk at kidneywalk.ca.
Get your phones out, Hamilton. Scan the QR code on your screen to take you directly to cable14.com, where you can find out about our shows, see our TV schedule, learn about our hosts, and so much more.
I'm Nicole Martin, the proud ambassador for the Comfort Bear program. Comfort Bears provide these cuddly bears to local children who are terminally ill, facing trauma, or battling a serious illness. Every $20 donation will place a Comfort Bear into the loving arms of a child involved in our program. It is our hope to distribute 1,000 bears in 2022. Please join us and provide comfort to kids in their time of need.
With clubs, leagues, and courts in every province and territory across Canada, squash is the sport for wall-to-wall fun, fitness, and friendship. from coast to coast to coast. Learn to play and you'll want to do it every day. Squash. Play inside the box.
Have you tried to catch the ace yet? Not sure what it is? It's YWCA, Hamilton's new lottery game. And by playing, you'll help it build affordable housing in Hamilton. Go get yourself some tickets at ywcahamiltonace.ca. Play responsibly.
The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
Hello, I'm Connie Smith, and welcome to a Cable 14 special presentation. He's been a part of Hamilton's story since he arrived at Leuna Station as a little boy. A little boy who couldn't speak English, but grew up to be mayor of Canada's 10th largest city. His is a story woven into the growth and evolution of this city over the past, or the best part of the past quarter century. There's everything you've read and seen and heard about him in the media. Perhaps you've met him in person as well. But what's his story? That's what we're going to delve into today. Fred Eisenberger is my special guest. And Mayor Fred, here we are, a short distance, but quite a long way from those Mohawk College days.
Yeah, no kidding. What a journey it's been. So that whole period and that foundation of education actually has held me in good stead, and it's held you in good stead.
We didn't even know it, but we were at Mohawk College at the very same time.
Yeah.
And here we are today. How does it feel, first of all, not to be involved in an election campaign?
Very strange. I have to say this is the first time in about 25 years that I'm not on the ballot in some form or another, and it's very bittersweet. You know, you know, it's been an honor and a privilege to have been the mayor and councillor for as long as I have. I didn't set out to do that at the outset. It was not my career aspiration, and it kind of grew into you know, the next evolution in terms of involvement. But very pleased and proud of where we've ended up, and I think the city of Hamilton is in great shape, and looking forward to passing it on to someone else that'll take it from here.
You must feel a big sense of relief, though, to be just sitting out and not be part of that rushing around and the stress and the tension. So there's got to be a little bit of relief there.
Well, I've never been overly fond of campaigning. It is difficult. It's enjoyable when you're in it, but there's lots of stress and strain, especially if you're the mayor and you're campaigning at the same time. That is, doubly challenging because there's still work to do. So now I get to kind of finish my days with just the work I have to do and not have to worry about a campaign. And it'll be interesting to watch others get out there and share their message, whatever that's going to be, and try and impress upon the people what they're going to do for our great city.
We're going to come back to the present and then the future a little later on, but let's take a little trip back in time. I talked about that little boy coming here from Amsterdam. So paint us a bit of a picture of what was happening with the Eisenberger family back in Holland then. What precipitated the decision to start a new life in Canada?
You know, as my father tells the story, mother and father tell the story, is there was opportunity, a lack of opportunity in Holland, the Netherlands at that point, after the war years. They were having a difficult time, keeping people employed, and they were offering up some benefits for people to choose other locations around the world. So some of the choices that we had were USA. Everybody wanted USA at some level or another. Australia was another option, and Canada. And they took USA off the map as they were applying for landed immigrant status, and so it became between Australia and Canada, and they picked Canada because they thought, well, if we go to Canada, there's a slim chance that we're going to see our family again. If we go to Australia, probably
It's a long
not.
way.
A long, long way. Now, they told us this story when we were about 18 or 19 and said Australia was in the mix, and, for us 18 or 19-year-olds, we're going, you didn't pick Australia.
Oh, come
Why?
on, beaches,
Beaches,
year-round.
warm air, great climate, surf and turf and whatever. But Canada has been a real opportunity, and I give my parents great credit. It's a typical immigrant story, but one that took a lot of courage, and many people took that step, and we're as a family the better for it.
Do you remember the moment when you arrived, or at some point in the journey, a certain crystal clear memory that you've carried all these years?
Oh, there's a few. So for one, we left Amsterdam on a boat called the Seven Seas in February, so it was the middle of winter. So we were going through, around icebergs, and we had many memories on the boat, sliding back and forth, throwing snowballs at the captain, trying to knock his hat off. I mean, we had some fun on the boat, but my entire family got sick, except for myself. So I was the one that was getting the water and the wet cloth, and because back then they didn't have stabilizers. It was a rock and rolling ship. And then arrived in Halifax. I remember very little about Halifax because you didn't spend much time there. So basically you came to port, you got off the boat, you got processed, and you went over top of the railway tracks, got into train, and away you went. So Halifax was no memory at all. I remember the train ride, which was a couple of days, and then landing at Leuna Station right here in Hamilton.
Why Hamilton?
My father was a plumber steam fitter, and Hamilton was an industrial town. And from his perspective, it was the place to be in terms of future jobs. And he came first a year before we actually arrived by boat, and landed a job at International Harvester and secured a home on Stanley Avenue in the West End near Locke Street. And that's where our journey in Canada started.
You spoke not a word of English?
Not a word. And I remember being dropped into a grade 1 classroom at St. Joseph's on Locke Street. And after about 10 minutes, I'm saying, I don't know what's going on here. And we lived on Stanley Avenue, which is just around the corner. I went home. I did that about 5 times. The nun, very speedy little nuns they had back then, and I'm sure they still are today, would catch me just before I got home and pull me back to the classroom. Ultimately, they pulled my brother out of grade 2 and sat him beside me, and to this day my brother feels he lost a year of schooling because he had to keep me in the classroom.
Oh, that little brother, right? So you were 8, right? 8 years old. Yeah. So what was it like, though, as a little guy and everyone speaking this foreign language? How did you learn? What were the services available then?
There weren't any for immigration other than, other Dutch nationals that had come here already that were helpful. They were trying to get people jobs and opportunities, or, help search for homes. But basically, beyond that, you were on your own. And to be honest with you, I do not remember how I went from all Dutch to all English. It didn't take very long. And a young child, you're just a sponge, right? You absorb it so quickly. I don't remember the process. I don't remember the struggle. I just remember the first days of not understanding, and then, very quickly, figuring out what was going on and how to navigate our way through that. And then the language just came, within months. I was fluent in English. So, and I'm sure that's a pretty common experience for a lot of kids that get dropped into place and into sink or swim, right? Either you learn fast or something else happens. But it was great experience, and we ended up then moving to the East End, and like many immigrants, ended up living in geared to income housing, that kind of helping hand to help immigrants get established in Canada. And that took us to like 18 years of age before our parents could actually get into the regular housing market through the Home Ownership Made Easy plan. I don't know if you remember that one, but that happened quite some time ago, where the province of Ontario actually subsidized properties to give give people an opportunity to get into the housing market, and then everything grew from there. But so the original mission for the family was a better life for themselves and for their kids, and that happened in spades for our entire family.
So you became a teenager, you had a part-time job, delivering fish and chips,
Fish and chips at Parkdale Fish and Chips on a bike.
Wow.
Pedaling like crazy to get it to the right spot. The Struss family was the owner of the fish and chip shop. I still see the Struss boys that are actually own property downtown in various different locations. Kentucky Fried Chicken, went to high school, or St. Eugene's to grade school after St. Joe's. Sir Winston Churchill High School after that. And then Mohawk College, and then the political aspiration hit at some point, many years later, and got an opportunity to run against a Fred Lombardo and Reg Wheeler, names you will remember.
Yes,
many others won't. They've been on council for a long time, and I won that first election in 1991 by 19 votes.
So, at what point did the whole idea of getting involved in politics occur to you? Was it just meeting them one day, or did something happen in current events? What sparked that?
There were a few moments where I got to meet some of the politicians that were active, and in my mind, I was also studying environmental sciences at the University of Waterloo at the time. And I didn't believe that the city was doing enough on the environmental side to get us to a better place. So, environmental contamination, air quality issues, water quality issues were all very, important issues for me. And having seen, where I could actually participate, suddenly it occurred to me that having two long-term councillors vying for one spot would be an opportunity to potentially get some votes on a kind of a change basis. So I basically decided to give it a whirl, not thinking that I was going to win. I did win by 19 votes, and I'll tell you that Reg Wheeler, as gracious a man as he was, and he was a wonderful man, I loved them both, said, he could have asked for a recount and said, let the kid have it.
I could just hear him saying that.
Yep.
Let the kid have it.
Yep.
So, brand new Ward 5 alderman, what was that whole initiation into municipal politics like?
Well, it was a great learning curve. I mean, I was obviously excited to be there, and a great opportunity to learn the ins and outs of the city, and I think that level of experience matters a great deal. Got to understand the media. Obviously, part of the process for anyone that's elected is, how do you deal with the media? How do you not get into trouble all the time? And so that was a journey. How to work through the kind of the policy process, and how do you get things done, and how do you develop a vision? And for me, it was always about generating a forward-thinking vision for our city that even started back in 1991. So I actually pushed for and got the first waterfront redevelopment study underway that really spoke of what do we do with the lands from the HMCS Star all the way over to the high-level bridge. And many of those elements have now come to pass. And so very proud of the fact that we got that vision out in the broader community. And so the learnings were, have a vision, try to convince people to come along, and have tenacity. Have tenacity to keep at it, because politics and government can be a slow, grinding process, but you can be successful with tenacity and vision.
And patience.
And patience.
And patience.
Yeah.
Okay, so a big jump when it comes to running for the mayor in 2000 of this brand new amalgamated city. That was pretty gutsy.
Yeah, and it was 9 years after I'd been a councillor already, and so got to understand what it took to be a mayor or back then a regional chair was very prominent. We had a number of mayors in the broader community. I was on regional council, so got the benefit of that broader experience of the whole area. So amalgamation was just an opportunity to either bring a new and forward-thinking vision to the table. So I thought, probably time for me to either go up or out, and clearly it was out. But it was a great experience, and I will to this day say that they picked exactly the right person for mayor at that time, Bob Wade. And, and given that moment in time, when I reflect back on it, amalgamation was a pretty big issue. You needed to have, the gravitas to be able to bring people together. I was probably a little too rambunctious and too visionary, and Bob was very much about bringing people together.
Conciliator, wasn't he?
Conciliator, yeah. So they picked exactly the right guy at that moment in time. But it was a great learning experience of how you run a campaign. The mayor's campaign is probably the biggest campaign that you can run, because even federal candidates get elected in a riding. Other than prime minister or premier, who still have to get elected in writing, mayorships are the entirety of the city. And so it was a great learning opportunity, great experience. It wasn't daunting. So, others might have
stung a little bit.
A little bit. I would say I agreed with the outcome, although would have liked to have won. You always run to win, but wasn't really daunted by the fact that we could get on to other things, and I did. I mean, there was other opportunities, and
you're still,
none of it's been wasted.
You were still an alderman then? You were still?
No, I was out.
You were totally out then?
I was totally out, and I
Okay.
was ended up doing some consulting work and had my own little consulting firm.
Port Authority?
And
Is that when
did
that
some
came
Port
into it?
Authority
Right.
work,
Chair of the
exactly,
Port
and had a
Authority.
great opportunity to get appointed there by the Honourable Sheila Copps, who obviously saw some value in the work that I've been doing, and especially on the waterfront side. And so I had a great experience at the Port Authority, and kind of led them to a new chapter as well, which previous to that was the Harbour Commissioners, with lots of litigation and challenges.
Harbour Bay.
We were able to get past all of that and develop a good, strong relationship with the city, and I'd like to think we had something to do with that. And then another opportunity to run from here kind of came around.
Yeah, so was that still in the back of your mind that you wanted to get back into politics?
It was.
Right.
I wasn't quite done. I still had the aspiration around environment, around the waterfront now, which I put a lot of time and effort into. I believe that our waterfront should have been more accessible, and slowly but surely that's come to pass. Not singularly because of me, but many, many others have come to the table to actually help that happen. So I did not let go of at that point of the aspiration of some point getting back to the leadership in the mayor's office, yeah.
So that was germinating in the back of your mind. And when we come back, we're going to see how Fred Eisenberger found his way to that mayor's chair after all.
Any eligible voter can request a vote-by-mail package to cast their ballot for the upcoming municipal election on October 24th, 2022. You can request a vote-by-mail package anytime from September 1st until September 23rd, 2022. You must be on the voters list to request a vote-by-mail package. A vote-by-mail ballot package includes a voting instruction sheet, a ballot, an inner ballot secrecy envelope, a voter declaration form, an outer return envelope with prepaid postage. Vote-by-mail packages will be mailed the week of September 26, 2022. You can only use black or blue ink to fill out the ballot. Do not use a pencil. Once you have filled out your ballot, place it in the secrecy envelope that is included in your vote-by-mail package. You must also sign the voter declaration form included in the vote-by-mail package and include it in your envelope when sending the ballot back. Place your inner secrecy envelope with your completed ballot and your signed voter declaration form into the outer return envelope. Return envelopes come with prepaid postage, so no stamp is required. Be sure to seal the envelope. Now it's time to drop off your sealed envelope. You can return it in person at a vote-by-mail drop box available at City Hall or any of the city's 5 municipal service center locations. You can also send your sealed envelope back via mail by placing it in a Canada Post mailbox. Make sure your vote-by-mail package is received by Election Day. This means you must mail it back by October 13th, or drop it off at any of the municipal service centers by October 21st in the designated drop boxes. You can also drop it off at City Hall before 8 p.m. Election Day, October 24th. Remember to vote in the municipal election this October. If you have any questions or want to learn more, visit hamilton.ca/elections.
Do you have feedback on Cable 14's programs? Let us know by calling 905-523-1414, extension 227, or email feedback@cable14.com.
I am Gagwege. My name means everything.
Tom Longboats.
I am Wolf Clan, Onondaga Nation. I've run many different races. I've run to survive and to be free. I've run to win for honor.
His people might be lazy, but this one's damn fast.
My people respected our runners, people who carried important messages from village to village.
I need a guide to the next post. Dispatch carrier, sir. I can get you there. God's sakes, man! Slow down. Who do you think I am, Tom Longboat? No, sir. I am.
Running makes me feel alive. It's everything.
Tom Longboat was the first Indigenous person to win the Boston Marathon. He ran his way to international fame and became an inspiration to generations of athletes.
Tune into THN this month as we give you some of the events happening throughout the month.
Yeah, that's right. Lions Lair, also 12th year, Dave Carter Innovation Factory.
We'll also give you a chance to win tickets to Disney on Ice at First Ontario Centre.
Yeah, we look ahead to see what's going on with the hometown Hamilton Bulldogs.
Love it. All this and much more right here on the Hamilton Network. Visit cable14.com/THN for airtimes.
Adele is one of our current staff members. She had a rough, challenged life, and it was because of your support that made that difference. She is now on the right track, continuing her education, going into a college, looking into the field of child and youth, and it's because you made that difference. So I want you to continue to donate to the United Way of
People in Ontario are still trying to catch that ace. Have you tried yet? Purchase your tickets and give it a go. Every week, YWCA Hamilton announces a winner. It could be you. Play responsibly and get those tickets at ywcahamiltonace.ca.
Get your phones out, Hamilton. Scan the QR code on your screen to take you directly to cable14.com, where you can find out about our shows, see our TV schedule, learn about our hosts, and so much more.
If alcohol builds a wall around you that doesn't let you see where you're going, that keeps you feeling isolated and alone, that makes you feel hopeless, know this. We're here to help if you want us to. It's never too early or too late to ask for help with a drinking problem. Alcoholics Anonymous. There is a way out. For more information, visit aa.org and download the Meeting Guide app.
The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
The City of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase in 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the City of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, known as North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
Hello and welcome to Our Hamilton, Our Vote, the 2022 municipal election debates presented live by Cable 14 in partnership with our good friends at the Hamilton Spectator. Once again, I'm Mike Fortune and I will be your moderator. For this debate, we have invited the candidates for councillor in Ward 10 to join us. All three of them are here in studio tonight with us in person. We welcome Jeff Beattie, Louis Milojevic, and the incumbent, Maria Pearson. Our format includes 2 minutes each for the candidates to introduce themselves. Then, our local media panel will be posing questions. Viewers at home, if you're watching our live broadcast, please tweet us at Cable14 or email election@cable14.com to share any questions that you'd like to ask of these candidates. And finally, we will wrap up the hour with an open forum for the candidates to question and respond to each other. All candidates, they have been provided with copies of the debate format and are fully aware of how the next hour will unfold. Of course, I will be doing my best to keep us on track with what's expected for each section and how we are also doing for time. So let's get started with our 2-minute introductory statements. If needed, you will get a 10-second warning before I call time. Up first, candidate Jeff Beattie.
Thanks, Mike. And thank you to the SPEC and Cable 14 for hosting this important event. Folks, my name is Jeff Beattie, and I'm working hard to be your next Ward 10 councillor. This election is going to be about track records. And of the three options here, all of them have very different track records. My track record is entirely viewable, 100% transparent. You can see exactly where I've been and exactly where I'd like to take us. Just go to jeffbeattie.ca and look on my profile to see for yourself. With my experience in local business, local volunteer work, and using multiple social media channels, I am by far the most accessible and approachable candidate here today. As I mentioned, I run an award-winning business here in Stony Creek. I'm raising a family here. I've lived here all my life, and I have over a quarter century of volunteer experience with local grassroots organizations ranging from everything from the Winona Peach Festival to the Orchard Park robotics team. I've worked in both a governance role and sometimes I just show up to roll up my sleeves and get things done. I do all of this in service of making my community better, and it's truly what drives me. I also have some experience as an elected official, having served as Ward 10's school board trustee from 2014 to 2018. During that time, I was able to collaborate effectively with others around the table and with other levels of government to get funding, badly needed funding, for our Stony Creek schools to the tune of tens of millions of dollars for Eastdale and South Meadow. It's something I'm extremely proud of. And now I want to take that proven track record and put it to work for you at City Hall to be your voice and to get things done. Folks, the status quo is letting us down. We need to move forward. And I'm confident that with my proven track record, I'm the best choice for change, for the better, for our community. So on October 24th, vote for better, vote for Beatty.
Candidate Beatty, thank you very much for that. We will now move on to candidate Louis Milojevic.
Thank you, Mike, Cable 14, the Hamilton Spectator, for facilitating this important debate. The media in this city has done a tremendous job of shining a light on the importance of this election and on certain disturbing matters in City Hall. Without you, our city would still be in the dark about the dangers in the Red Hill Parkway friction report. A report whose details could very well have prevented hundreds of collisions and the tragic deaths of fellow residents. Without you, we would still be in the dark about the carelessness and callousness behind City Hall's attempt to hide the details of a sewage spill that saw 24 billion liters of raw sewage escape into Shadow Creek. Without you, we would not be able to see the kind of political power and privilege that is accumulated in City Hall at the expense of and to the risk of taxpayers. It is time for local representatives to be truthful and transparent. Career politicians like the incumbent who have been in office for decades have grown too big. With politics as their livelihoods, they would do anything to keep their positions, including withholding life-saving information from the public. Stony Creek welcomed my family with open arms and helped us live the Canadian dream. I have been blessed to experience our community from many different perspectives. From that of a young reporter for the Stony Creek News, from that of a history professor who studies and writes about political change for a living, and I've experienced it from the perspective of a local business owner working in the world of investment and finance. If I earned the privilege of serving as councillor, you will have a representative who is forthright and understands how to harness the growth that we see around us responsibly and respectfully with the input of residents and neighborhoods. You will have a representative who also understands how to ensure that our communities are safe, clean, and designed with the long-term well-being of families, seniors, and small business owners in mind. You will have a representative who holds regular town halls, and most of all, a councillor who answers to you, the taxpayer. Thank you.
Mr. Milojevic, thank you very much for that. And to wrap up our group of three tonight, candidate Maria Pearson.
Thank you, Cable 14 and The Spectator, for the opportunity to reach out to our residents in Ward 10. I'm Maria Pearson, your Ward 10 councillor, running for re-election on October 24th. I've been honoured to represent this ward for 28 years and have resided at my home for 38. I know the ward and concerns, having assisted numerous residents and addressed many issues over the years. I am proud of over $110 million in infrastructure upgrades that have been completed in the ward and look forward to the next $77 million of work coming over the next number of years that will see many of the items that have been asked for by residents, including traffic calming initiatives, park upgrades, roads redone, recreation facilities, fire department upgrades, and much more. Helping people is what I do best, and I'm proud of my service and commitment to you. I'm proud of my record of answering all my phone calls and emails personally, and pleased to meet residents at their homes, saving them from going downtown. I'll be completing my door knocking shortly and appreciate the input and concerns that have been brought to my attention. It is through this one-on-one dialogue that I'm able to represent your interests and address your concerns quickly and efficiently. I'm very proud of the diverse neighborhoods that shape our community and the long-standing residents and newcomers to the ward who want to call Stony Creek home. Knowing the community and history has allowed me to move many issues forward and protect what Ward 10 is all about. We're truly an exceptional part of Hamilton, nestled between the escarpment and waterfront. We are very fortunate to have a sought-after industrial area, and I welcome companies that want to locate here, including Amazon and Venetian Meats and many more. Recently, utility upgrades by Bell and Electra in Stony Creek continue to make our community a desirable area to live, work, and play. We will continue to grow and flourish with responsible, experienced leadership. There's still much to be done. With your support, I will continue to work hard for you, be a strong voice, be accessible to each and every one of you, and continue to provide the service you expect and deserve.
Thank you to each of you for your introductions. Greatly appreciated. And now we will bring in our local media panel. With us again for this debate are Kevin Werner for the Hamilton Spectator and Hamilton Community News, and Sean Cowan from CH News. Each of our reporters will be choosing a candidate to answer a question, and then other candidates can ask to respond. Please make sure you indicate quickly and clearly if you would like to. All of your responses will be limited to 1 minute. I'll give a warning when time has run out. Our first question comes from Kevin Werner.
Thank you very much, Mike. Mr. Beatty, if you're elected councillor, you'll be in the throes of a budget discussion. Hamilton's facing a 6.9% tax increase. How will you try to minimize that impact on, especially on residents, especially seniors who are on fixed incomes?
Thank you, Kevin. That's an important question. The fact of the matter is that there's a lot that takes place already at City Hall that probably could be done more effectively and efficiently. I would start by working with my colleagues around the table to ensure that the programs that we're delivering are effective, efficient, and maximized in terms of the cost and the return to the community. Particularly in Stony Creek, we face, I think, a unique problem that we pay almost the most amount of tax in the entire city, second only to Ancaster. And for that, it's a tough thing to go back to the community and ask for more. So minimizing those impacts on all residents, seniors included, young families included, that would be something that would be front of mind for me, and I'd be working and collaborating around the table to make sure that that gets done.
Candidate Pearson.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much for that question as well. And I just wanted to jump in and say, you know, we've worked very hard. I've sat around the table for a number of budgets, and I'm very proud of our staff and what they do, all departments and what they come in as recommendations. And we always send them back, and they do a tremendous job. We all know that it's approximately $10 million is a 1% cut in the budget, that we have to eliminate $10 million on the budget. It is a lot of work. Our staff have been superb every budget in coming in with the projected 6.9% this year. And, you know, we always get to whittle it down. So even last year we were down to 2.9. We did start out, I believe it was at 4.5. It was a very difficult budget because of COVID, but I'm confident that our staff will continue to work hard, and we will work hard around the table to do the very best we can. I certainly recognize the situation with seniors and the homeless and everything else we have to deal with right now, and especially still on the coattails of COVID.
I think we also have to focus on not making obvious mistakes like the Red Hill Parkway report. We can be as efficient and effective as we want, but if we're making mistakes, not being truthful and transparent with constituents in our community and our city, we're going to keep being fined by the province. We're going to keep being in the gutter, basically. We're at $27 million and counting for the inquiry right now.
I see Candidate Beatty wanted to get involved, and then Candidate Pearson again.
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe follow up a little more that sometimes the best way to maximize an existing budget is to pinpoint exactly what the return on those investments are. So if we are going to make strategic investments, what are the returns for the community? Because there are things that we can do very specifically to grow the economy, to make an impact in that way, to have more people paying more tax in other ways other than just cranking up the tax rate. If we're able to make strategic investments that will benefit the entire city, make things run smoother, help businesses grow quicker, I think that those would be the things that we as a council should be looking at.
Candidate Pearson.
Thank you, and I can't disagree with that, but we are doing that now, and we are very strategic in what we do. We do have projections of where we want to be, and we've been very successful in getting to those points and markers every budget, and I believe that we will be able to continue to do that. I just want to comment on the Red Hill Valley issue that, you know, I'm going to use an analogy that, you know, our house is perfect until something happens. And when something happens, we have to deal with it. And unfortunately, this was an unfortunate situation that happened on the Red Hill, and we're going to deal with it.
Before we move on to our next question, Candidate Beatty, if you like, you can have final word.
Yeah, I just, the analogy that the house is perfect until something goes wrong, I think that you have to be always looking forward and anticipating the things that are going wrong before they happen. I mean, just to be responsive all the time, that's not a proactive approach. It's a reactive approach, and I don't think that it's worked well for us, and certainly would be something that I'd be wanting to change around the table.
Thank you for all those responses. If any of you would like to bring that up in the open forum, you are more than welcome to. We will continue to move on. From CHCH, Mr. Sean Cowan.
Thank you. This question is for candidate Milojevic. Lower Stony Creek has seen a lot of development over the past 10 years, townhomes, condos with intensification. Do you think there should be more? Do you think it's enough?
The slogan of my campaign has been responsible and respectful development. We can't deny that our community is growing rapidly at a crazy pace, but we haven't harnessed it effectively. And harnessing it effectively means ensuring that existing neighborhoods and communities have a say, have input in how these new communities are developed. Right now, we basically have development for development's sake. 5 years later, we realize, oh, we needed a stop sign. Oh, we needed a traffic light. Oh, there's no recreational opportunities. We also have to develop with green infrastructure in mind. We aren't developing sustainably. We aren't developing with the community. We're just doing it rapidly without thinking forward at all.
Thank you for that. I have to disagree with the comments of the previous speaker. I believe that our developments are responsible in Ward 10, and I've had phenomenal developments over the last number of years. We are developing responsibly, and I believe that residents have to understand, and candidates, that infrastructure and traffic initiatives, everything all comes in line with development as it comes forward. So to say we don't have the stop signs, or we don't have this, or we don't have that, they do come. And that's part of the $77 million budget that I'm speaking of over the next 10 years, where we be addressing the infrastructure that's needed now because of the increased population, because of the people who've moved to Stony Creek and want to call Stony Creek their home.
Candidate Beatty?
Once again, I mean, that sounds like a reactive solution, not a proactive solution. And I mean, let me be clear. I don't think anybody expects that development is suddenly going to stop in Lower Stony Creek. That's not what I'm hearing at the door. People understand that it's going to happen. But I think that the point that is being made is that the development proposals are going to overwhelm the existing mature neighborhoods in which they're being proposed. And they simply don't have the infrastructure to support it. We don't have the proper roads, we don't have the proper sidewalks, and something should be done more proactively. We don't have transit. Something should be done more proactively in these existing mature communities where people have a certain expectation of what it is that their life is going to be like, their quality of life is going to be like. And when we're talking about the infill proposals that are taking place in some of these developments, they are 6 times the density in some cases or more than the existing neighborhoods. And what kind of infrastructure is going to be able to support that? And of course, the quality of life and the impact that that's going to have.
Before we get to closing comment from candidate Milojevic, candidate Pearson.
Thank you. So I just want to reiterate, infrastructure development builds infrastructure. And what's existing will come on board through capital improvements once infrastructure's in place. To build a road that is, an unurbanized road right now, that you're going to have development abutting shortly and end up being all cut up again, perfect example, is that responsible spending of taxpayers' money? That's what we have to be careful of.
Final word?
I think there's a very real feeling at the doors that residents aren't feeling included in any developments for that matter. They are standing in queue. They're watching these conferences take place online, virtually, and they feel that they're being dictated to. I look at, more recently new areas in Winona, and it is an area of lawlessness, and it's a frontier almost, where people are left to their own devices. Winona has become one of the crime capitals of Hamilton. People are afraid that their cars may be stolen, broken into, vandalized. That is not the Winona that I grew up in.
Thank you for that response. Candidate Pearson, I know you want to get involved. However, if you like, keep that question for the open forum. I'm being told we have to move on due to time. And again, we are getting a lot of questions. Thank you so much. If we don't get to yours, keep submitting them throughout the rest of the week. And they've been tweeting us at Cable14 or emailing election@cable14.com. This one is directed to Maria Pearson. Pedestrians and cyclists feel unsafe on our roads. Speeding, aggressive driving, non-attentive driving, and overall street traffic safety across Ward 10 is a significant concern. If re-elected, how will you address this growing issue in your ward?
Excellent question to the to submitter. Thank you very much for that. And yes, as I've mentioned, the budgets, we've got capital dollars that have been approved that will be going forward. So a lot of new stoplights will be coming in. I'm proud to say we have two new red light cameras that have been installed recently. So we'll now have 3 red light cameras in the border and in Ward 10. We have speed boards. We have the speed counts that have been installed. I know they're only temporary, but there's a lot of initiatives that we're taking. As far as cycling, I'm very proud of supporting that we have cycling lanes that will be coming in as road upgrades occur. That's when we put them in, and we work with neighborhoods with regards to that. And it's an ever moving situation of trying to address it all and address it efficiently and being cost effective.
Candidate Beattie?
Thank you. And I think we've all heard from Stony Creek residents that they've been asking for help with speeding and traffic issues, safety issues in their community for a long period of time. And it's not happening. Nothing's happening. Just the other day, there was an accident where a young child was hit by a bike on Cedardale. It's a mature neighborhood. There's no further infrastructure or no further development coming to that area that's going to support changes to roadways. But people have been asking for specific things to be done for over 6 years, and nothing's happened. You can't say that you're listening when you're not actually listening. That's just not how it works.
So thank you for that, but I have to ask because I don't know of the accident. Sorry, I wasn't made aware of it, and I don't know what happened or how it was caused. But there are initiatives that I have on my list as I've been knocking on doors for Cedardale and numerous streets in Ward 10 to deal with traffic and speeding, and also the cycling intervention of lanes going in on many streets throughout the ward.
I think that if this had been listened to 6 years ago when these concerns were first raised, we wouldn't have to have this conversation today. That's the point I'll try to make.
Okay, we will give final word to candidate Pearson if she wishes, or we can move on.
Well, I'm just going to say, I'd love to say we could have addressed everything 30 years ago, 28 years ago. That would have been wonderful. But do remember, we have a 6.9% budget that we're going into. Everything that has to be done and is projected to be done is a cost line item. And we need to be very cognizant of that. We also have to remember that not everybody wants, when somebody hears at the door that someone wants this or another wants that, not everybody on the street wants it. And it's a matter of working with all of the neighborhood that I will be putting forward in order to get the best scenario of what that community area wants.
Another round of media questions. Kevin Werner, back at the podium.
Back again. Okay. Louis, I'm going to have to ask you, you mentioned police. As Stony Creek has grown, there's been more crime, more break-ins, that sort of thing. Are you in favor of adding more police? It doesn't seem to be happening because even though the police budget is increasing, yet the crime continues, and Stony Creek residents continue to say there's no police presence.
Well, maybe we have to better allocate how officers are distributed within the ward. It was an issue 4 years ago. It continues to be an issue. I definitely wouldn't defund the police. They have to be appropriately funded. These people risk their lives every day. But we also have to understand that part of Winona, where there is, the trend in crime, those are crimes of opportunity. Those communities were designed where you can get off the QEW, hit, strike, and run and get away with it. And now these residents are dealing with that. So I would definitely support more money for the police in that case and more officers there if necessary.
Thanks, Mike. First off, I have to take exception to Winona being called the crime capital of Hamilton. I'd like to see the statistics that would support that, because I don't think it's true. And I did grow up in Winona. I don't remember you growing up in Winona, but that's beside the point. I think it starts with engagement with our community. That's the front line. You have to have open dialogue between the community and the counselor. And the counselor is the one that's going to bring people together, the police service, different disciplines, bylaw, the fire service, whatever's needed. Listen to the perspective of residents in the area. And I know that there's issues there. I hear it. I've heard it for years, just as Louis has. But it begins with offering solutions, and the solutions start with bringing people together, listening, understanding perspectives, and then working on a plan cooperatively together as a community, as a group of professionals, as the different services that we're going to pull in, and finding real solutions for this. It's not something that can't be done, and it doesn't have to be some pie-in-the-sky solution. It just has to start with good community engagement.
Candidate Pearson.
Thank you. And, I believe I do have good communication with the community and with the police, and I'm very glad that I have had tremendous support over the last number of years and any calls I've ever made to get police attention into specific neighborhoods. And I understand and that there are issues in the ward, and there always will be. And I support putting more police on. I can't disagree with that at all. But again, we're going to go to a budget item. And we need the police. I will not ever support defunding the police, and I believe it's a presence that we need to see in our community more and stronger. Thank you.
Candidate Milojevic.
Well, I just wanted to respond to Jeff. I think when you belong to these online social media groups in Winona and you read and hear and see their stories, they've all bonded together and they've essentially become numb and given up on City Hall, that City Hall can help them at all. They stick together, they report suspicious activity. There's a real sense of community there, but there's also a real sense of concern that things are just going to get worse and worse.
Thank you for that response. And again, to our candidates, if things are coming up that we can't get to, please keep those in mind for the open forum, and you can address them at that point. Back from CHCH, Sean Cowan.
All right, this question is for candidate Beattie. I know you said you were on the school board, trustee. Interesting, with inflation is up, the price of housing, cost of gas, food. Interested to hear what everybody has to say about this, but start off with you. What career path would you suggest young people get into in Stony Creek to be able to afford everything?
A career path in Stony Creek to be able to afford everything.
It's interesting.
Well, I mean, I think there's two divergent things here. You're asking for what do I recommend as a career path, and then how do you be able to... Yeah, for sure. I appreciate the question, Sean. I mean, at the end of the day, I think you're always going to be most successful at things that you do well, you enjoy. I love what I do, the business that I run, so it's not a chore per se. It's something that I'm passionate about. So if I was ever giving career advice to folks, I'd always say, start there, start with what you love. And that's the advice that I'm giving to my kids. My kids are all following career paths, hopefully, that they really, really feel passionately about. As for the affordability issue, it's our job as the leaders of the community to put in place things right now to ensure that they will have affordable options in the future. So it's almost to the point of saying, guys, go off and do your best, make your career, and we will put something in place as the current leadership structure to make sure that you have a place to be when you're ready.
Candidate Pearson.
Thank you, and I really appreciate that question, Mr. Cowan. That it's a wonderful segue for me to promote Mohawk College, Salt Fleet Campus, and if I had to say, I'd certainly recommend our young people look at getting into the trades. If we had to say at this day and age, there's a shortage of trades workers out there, and they're definitely and desperately needed. And we have wonderful college and university facilities that can provide that education and training and get these young people out there. So I would certainly promote our young people look seriously into getting into the trades.
Candidate Milojevic.
It has never been harder to raise a family or own a home or get by day to day. I think Jeff was on to something, definitely. We should be worried about counselors now who do the conventional job of counselor. They chase the raccoon, collect your garbage, pave your roads, plow your snow. But they also shape the economy. They create jobs. They're job creators. They think about the future so that our kids don't leave town and go elsewhere. We've had so much brain drain in this city. So in addition to like recognizing that these are difficult times for everyone, we have to start thinking forward and making sure that there's an environment here, on at least on a local level, where young people can succeed regardless of their passion or profession.
Candidate Pearson?
Well, picking up the raccoons and cleaning up garbage and clearing snow are all just as important to the set of citizens of Stony Creek and Hamilton, Ward 10. But I do have to say that, we do have to raise our families, and it's important. We have to remember council can only do so much. It is important, and we have to all work together in assisting our families and bring that family unit back, that we have a support there for them.
Candidate Beatty, if you wish.
I think that the point that I was trying to make in my answer to Sean was that if we, as a future council, are putting in place plans right now that go beyond just election terms, that go beyond maybe even decades, go beyond business cycles, to try to address affordable housing, to try to increase the ability of local businesses to attract talent, to grow and prosper. That will be what helps those future residents return to Stony Creek or stay in Stony Creek, and that's something that I'm going to be really passionate about doing.
Thanks to each of you. I don't know if Sean, would you recommend television career for someone?
No comment.
There you go.
But we are hiring. A lot.
More questions are being submitted by our viewers, and we thank you all so much for tuning in and tweeting us at Cable 14 or emailing election@cable14.com. This viewer wants to direct their question to Jeff Beatty, saying, we hear a lot about how drug addiction is impacting our overall community. If you are elected, what are your plans to help deal with this crisis?
Thank you, and that's an important question. I'm going to admit that I'm not a healthcare professional. I don't have the knowledge in this space that perhaps I should. So I'm going to be relying on people around the table, our medical professionals, people who are engaged in this particular area that know more than I do. Listen to what their recommendations are going to be. All in all, I think a lot of it is going to start with a solid poverty reduction strategy, because sometimes it's an offshoot of poverty that leads into drug addiction. So having a firm footing in poverty reduction, affordable housing is going to play into that. But at the end of the day, when it comes specifically to drug addiction, I'm going to be the one that's going to be asking for more good data from people that are knowledgeable in this area and work forward from that with a solid plan.
Thank you for that response. Yes, Candidate Milojevic.
Well, the data is available. The numbers are staggering. Overdoses are higher than they've ever been. And we're on path this year to smash the previous year record. So I think we have to add urgency to this situation, and I haven't witnessed that urgency.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Mike said. I just want to add that, I'm very proud of our Dr. Richardson, our medical officer of health, and the health department, what they do every day, and the reports and recommendations they bring forward to us. I think one of the best things we've done this past term is pursued the safe drug sites in the city that have been able to assist in distributing naloxone kits, training our police officers, and obviously our paramedics know what they are required to do. But we've certainly started the implementation of doing the best we can to help these people, to get them the service that they need as best as we can, and certainly pursuing funding from other levels of government in order to assist in that regard as well.
Thank you for that. If you wish, Candidate Beatty, final word, or we can move on, whatever you like.
We can move on.
Okay, let's do that. Kevin Werner, you are up next.
Yes, of course. I'm going to go with Mr. Beatty again.
Thanks, Kevin.
No preference, please. But it's a reason. So there's been a lot of talk of change and change in council. I'm wondering, are you supportive of term limits, and whether you will set your own term limit?
Yeah.
serving on council if elected?
Great question, and thank you. And this is one that initially, Kevin, when I was thinking about it, I think in my last run at council in 2018, I hadn't fully made up my mind on it. And I've been thinking about this lately. So, I mean, I'll come right out and say it. Yes, I do support term limits. It is a provincial matter. It does take working with our provincial counterparts if it's something that we're serious about as a council moving forward. Myself, I would impose a 3-term limit. In a business cycle, as a business owner, if I can't get it done in 10 years, I'm not likely to get it done. So I'd be best to step aside and let somebody else take over. So it's a matter of discussions around the table with other members of council. If it's something that we want to apply resources to, if we feel strongly about it, and petitioning the provincial government to make those changes, then that's something I'd be entirely supportive of.
Louis?
I've written and spoken about this at length. Last election, I came out and said 2-term limit. I'll stick to that. I think I call it sustainable leadership, and we haven't had that either. If you stay after 8 years, you become too familiar with City Hall. Democracy is supposed to be friendly, but not familiar to the leaders in office. Once it becomes friendly and familiar, mistakes are made. Councillors feel that they develop fiefdoms and they do their own thing.
Candidate Pearson.
Thank you for that. No, I do not support term limits. And, this has been reviewed in the past. There's a loss of history, experience, diversity. It's actually an insult and a disservice to the democratic process and the voters who have gained trust and confidence in their councillors. There's no other career that has a term limit. You hire a plumber, you hire a lawyer, you have a doctor, you want to have somebody that has experience. Of course, my opinion is biased, but voters go to the polls every 4 years and make their decisions. If I've done my job right, then the outcome will speak for itself. The most successful governments have a balance of veteran and newcomer representatives. No, I do not support term limits.
A couple more responses here. Candidate Beatty.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's probably where I was in 2018. I was concerned about it being something that would be running against the democratic process. I mean, who are we to say that if somebody doesn't do a good job, that they shouldn't be a choice for candidates to move forward? But I also remember back before I ran the business that I'm running now, I worked elsewhere. And I can remember over a period of time, you start to take on the characteristics of your coworkers. You start to absorb the culture. You start to sound the same. You start to make the same decisions. You start to act the same. And I think the same is true in any organization, especially a high-level organization. But I think that in a governance role, when you're running a city, when you're trying to be the models for your constituents, refreshing every now and again and possibly being forced to refresh would be something that brings new ideas to the table and breaks that stagnant culture. And I think that's going to be really important.
Before we move on, Louis Milojevic.
Where we differ here is that both individuals have referred to it as a job. It is not a job. It is a service to a community. As far as the democratic process is concerned, I question that democratic process, specifically when 40% of the population on average, probably even less, votes, and a candidate gets 35% of that 40%. They are effectively in office with less than 20% of the population firmly supporting them, and that is unacceptable.
Thank you for that. You good? Before we get to Sean?
There's some incumbent councillors that have an approval rating in the 70th percentile. So okay. I think that goes against that, but I stand behind new ideas, fresh ideas, and a change of the corporate culture of an organization.
Keep it fresh. We can talk about it more during the open forum. Sean Cowan.
Thank you. I think, did you just say less than 40% of people actually vote, right?
Yeah.
I'll direct this question to you, candidate. First, Pearson, why do you think only 40% of the population votes? What can we do to get more people to vote?
Well, I would be thrilled to get more people out there and vote. Can't say that I'm not trying as I knock on every door, but I don't know how to explain that. I don't know whether it's become a situation they've become stagnant. They feel that their voice isn't being heard. Meanwhile, people I talk to, issues that come to my attention are being taken care of. So, it's really unfortunate. And I think it's just, is it voter an overload of elections? There could be a number of different reasons, but, we really need to get people to be more responsible and, and take that serious and vote. So I wish I had a better answer to say why they're not. I certainly encourage it every day.
Response?
Sure, I'll give a response. Thank you, Sean. Great question. People are cynical. People are seeing things. They're seeing lived examples of stuff not changing. And I think that, unfortunately, Maria, you're a case in point when you're not responding to people, when it's taking 6 years to get back to people on issues, when people are calling you and you're not calling them back. And even you make a reference to knocking on every door, but I've heard stories where you just walk away from people mid-sentence if you don't like what they have to say. So people are not having a good experience with their incumbent councillors. They are questioning the whole system, and it's making them think that it doesn't matter what I do, nothing's going to change. And it's up to the community to rally and for a change candidate, and I'm hoping I can be that person to show that I can do it differently and be responsive and change people's mindsets on it.
Yes, my final word is, and I'm not going to say I'm not disappointed that Mr. Beattie makes these comments, but I can tell you that I do respond to all residents. I respond on my emails, to all my emails personally. I respond to residents by phone when they phone me, and I do not walk away from residents when they're raising their issues. Every issue, no matter how great or how small, is very important to me. And to be sure that it gets addressed and taken care of in a timely manner is also very important to me, and I stand by that.
Thanks to each of you for that lively discussion. And again, thank you very much to our media panel, Sean Cowan and Kevin Werner, Ward 10 candidates. We're going to go at it now with our open forum, where we will give as many candidates as we can a minute to direct a question to one other candidate. That candidate will then have a chance to respond, and then we will open up the floor for other brief comments. I will let you know when our time requires us to move on. At the beginning of the show, we drew numbers ahead to determine order for this segment. First question comes from Maria Pearson.
Thank you, sir. This question is directed to Mr. Milojevic. You're against urban boundary expansion. How do you plan to manage dramatic population growth in Ward 10 when you've stunted the development area and forced development, ironically, to go up into intense small units, high-rise developments that look like Mr. Beattie's skyscraper clip art, which are overloading existing infrastructure that you claim you want to be sustainable?
We can work with developers. Right now, we're not working with the community. The community communities aren't being consulted at all. They're being dictated to. They're being told what to do. They're being in queue, waiting to speak, and they're not getting an opportunity to speak.
Please.
No.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with that. So that was a comment that was raised in another question earlier, and I wanted to respond. But we have to remember, we just went through 2 years of COVID. All of our meetings had to be held virtually. Was I appreciative of that? Did I like that? Absolutely not. I would have loved to be able to have the public forum. I enjoy having the public forums, especially on planning committee meetings and development meetings. And I think it's important that we work with the residents just as much as we work with developers.
There are communities that already lack basic infrastructure, and part of that is due to neglect by our current councillor. And they don't have proper roads, they don't have proper sidewalks, they don't have proper parks, they don't have rec centers, they don't have transit. We're talking about cramming more people per capita into those existing spaces, 6 times or more the current standard, going from, say, 150 units per hectare to 900 units per hectare. That's a big jump. There's nothing to sustain it. There's nothing to help it succeed. And if a development doesn't enhance a community, it's very likely to destroy it.
And the development has to bring those services and provide the necessary land, et cetera, for the city to move forward. As I mentioned before, $77 million in capital upgrades are coming. And a lot of those upgrades will be coming once development comes through. Recreation and parks, community centers, pools, all of the new play equipment. That's all part of what I believe Mr. Beatty's referring to, is the areas that are not developed yet in Ward 10, and there is huge development coming forward. I speak of the Fruitland-Winona secondary plan most importantly. There's lands in there that will be dedicated for a neighborhood park, for a community park, and that's when that infrastructure is going to come. Those are when the upgrades happen. And I'm thrilled to say that I've been working with staff for a number of years on what will be coming forward in those areas.
Maria keeps mentioning the $77 million that's planned in the future, but there's needs in existing communities taking place right now, and there's no money. She keeps saying that there's no money for existing communities, but with a little bit of research, you can actually find out that this is not really the case. I mean, it doesn't take you very long to see that there's $54,000 in a special reserve fund for Grays Road North, $175,000 in award-specific non-tax revenue funds, $625,000 in a special reserve fund for non-area rated or for area rated infrastructure, $2.9 million in award-specific minor improvement fund, and another $4.1 million in a special royalty reserve fund from the former Taro dump. That's over $6.8 million. And none of it is allocated. And this is a problem. If it's supposed to go somewhere, it's not being done in a transparent way. Nobody can see or know what this process is. It's all taking place behind the scenes.
Candidate Pearson?
Yes, so I know of the funds that Mr. Beatty's referring to, but these are funds that are not going to cover the infrastructure that is being requested, the parks, the land that has to be acquired, the facilities that have to be installed. You're looking at millions and millions of dollars.
Existing inventory. I'm talking about existing infrastructure.
And a lot of that has been allocated towards road improvements over the
not
next number of
according to the
years.
budget.
Well, according to my budget, that's on my
You're
records.
not sharing your budget with everyone else.
So I don't have the budget here this evening, Mr. Beatty, but I can tell you that I have
This
Maple Drive under
viewable,
reconstruction next year. I have DeWitt
viewable
Road
online.
being done.
There's no transparent plan.
Thank you. So there's a number of road improvements that are coming, and that's what Mr. Beatty's referring to as far as the $6 million. I had money allocated for urbanization, which I have been proud of achieving in Ward 10 since I was elected in 2003. The goal was to pursue urbanization, meaning curb and gutters for neighborhood streets. And Mr. Beatty's well aware in Winona, there's a number of neighborhood streets that are still not urbanized, and I would certainly be putting that on list to get that done. But I have been pursuing that for a number of years, and there's many plans to go forward with roads resurfacing.
Thank you very much for that. Let's have candidate Beatty respond.
The point that I'm trying to make is that Maria tells the community that there's no money available for existing renewal. There's no renewal dollars available to fix our parks, fix our existing sidewalks. I'm not talking about upgrading in areas that are facing development. I'm talking about existing parks, mature neighborhoods, and the money is sitting there. There's 5 different funds here that anybody can find online, and nothing allocated against them that we know of. So there's either a major transparency issue here or I don't know what, because it's not showing as being allocated anywhere. There's need in the community for this investment, and it's not taking place.
Final word to candidate Pearson before we get to Louis.
Recreation and Parks have their listing and their timeline of reviewing all of the parks throughout Ward 10. And I'm not sure which park Mr. Beatty is referring to, but I believe it is also on the plans if we're thinking of the same one. But these are ongoing initiatives that are pursued by staff, carried forward. We just did a redesign and an upgrade to Waterford Park that included a splash pad. We just did an improvement in park play equipment at Winona Park. You know, there's a number of parks that staff have. I mean, I can go through the list, but I don't think that's what the residents want to sit here hearing this evening. But there's a number of parks that are on the list list that staff are looking at.
Where is the
Can I
list?
say Lake Vista, Lake Trillium, DeWitt Park for sure, absolutely. And DeWitt Park, you know, it's great to say let's do the upgrades. I have a major development that's going to be abutting DeWitt Park coming forward that was just approved.
Candidate Pearson, thank you very much for that. We do have to continue to move on. A question from candidate Louis Milojevic, and who you're directing it to, please.
My question is for Maria. Maria, people lost their lives because they were not told about the dangers of the Red Hill Parkway. You voted over 10 times, according to public sources, to keep those conditions secret from taxpayers. What do you say to those families who were affected by that highway?
So it wasn't keeping, I take exception to everybody saying we were keeping it a secret. This wasn't keeping it a secret. You have to remember, as a CEO of a corporation, when we received the devastating news of a draft report with regards to friction testing on the Red Hill Valley. It was a draft report that had been not provided to us for a number of years. We only got the information pretty well the same time that it went to the public once we got our legal opinion. And that rightfully is what we need to do as a CEO sitting around the table at council. We need to get the proper information and legal position so that we can be prepared to best protect the interest of the taxpayers.
Candidate Beattie?
There's Sewergate, there's Red Hill, there's withholding the documents from the Red Hill inquiry that council asked for. This is Maria's track record. Continually going against the wishes of the community, this is her track record. Not being transparent on projects that are apparently coming when we can clearly see that the money hasn't been allocated anywhere, this is her track record. We're demanding trust and transparency, accountability, and accessibility to our elected officials right now. And what Councillor Pearson is continually showing is just an inability to grow and adapt and to understand this. And I think it's time that we as a community make a change, and a change for the better. And I'm hoping to see that.
Candidate Pearson, before we get to candidate Milojevic.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate, it's interesting. You sit at that side of the table and have to realize there are things that we have to do to be able to do our job. And one of those is to get the expert opinions, whether it be from staff, from legal, before we carry things forward. And this is in the best interest of the taxpayers. We're not trying to hide things, but we have to be cautious of what information gets out there. Yes, there were documentation. This is in the hands of legal, not my hands. I don't have these documents. There's over 3 million pieces of documentation on the Red Hill Valley. Do I know that? Did I see where these documents are? Absolutely not. And we would never have had them all in our possession. So this is where our legal has to do their job. That's why we pay the dollars to the lawyers to give us the legal opinion. And the legal opinion was to go through all of these documents before they were released.
Candidate Milojevic.
You've emphasized the legal but completely overlooked the ethical. There were other councillors on that council, 3 I think, that voted to not classify things. What distinguishes your position from them?
Well, unfortunately, again, we go back to Democratic and the vote said that we be cautious on behalf of the taxpayers, and we do our due diligence before we carry the information forward.
Well, that due diligence is costing us a lot of money, $27 million and counting.
Candidate Beattie, final response before we move on.
I've sat in camera meetings for the school board, and we've discussed sensitive issues, and we've received legal opinion. And I've always believed that, and I believe it now, that it is always to the community's advantage and to everyone's advantage to get out in front of issues. Somebody's going to find out. You can't hold things back. And it's always better to be in front of things, acting proactively, not reactively, as is what happened with this council. They tried to hide it. It got leaked, and now they've lost control of it. If they had come out in front of it in the first place and owned it and said, this is the issue, we're going to own it, and these are the steps that we're going to take. You don't always have to do exactly what your lawyer tells you to. The lawyer works for you. You can take advice, but at the end of the day, you make the decision, and controlling the direction before it gets taken away, that direction gets taken away from you by being proactive, is always going to be the best way forward.
I know everyone wants to jump in on this. However, I'm being told by the little voice in my ear that we have to move on, and in fairness, to get Candidate Beattie's question out. So, Candidate Beattie, your question and who you're directing it to, please.
Thank you. My question is for Councillor Pearson. Maria, you've had to recuse yourself from the last 12 important conversations involving rental housing because you have a conflict of interest. You're a landlord. You own several rental properties, and that's fine. But it means that the last 12 times that we've had important discussions at City Hall about rentals, there's been no one representing Ward 10. And when it comes to building new affordable housing stock in Hamilton, rental plays an important component in the overall mix there. And yet you can't participate, you're not there. So how can you expect this community, our community, to take you seriously on this file for affordable housing when you can't even fully advocate on behalf of all residents to find new solutions on affordable housing?
Your question, please?
Given that, fine, yeah. Given that you're unable to fully participate on this question, how do you justify to the community that you're the best person to represent us for the next 4 years?
Thank you for that question. And yes, I am a landlord. I do have rental properties, and I have declared conflicts, and that's what we have to do legally to protect ourselves and protect taxpayers. It's important to be transparent. So I am being transparent. I don't see that there's an issue on social housing and dealing with this because I declared a conflict on rental housing. We deal with the Hamilton housing all the time, and I'm not declaring conflicts on that. I support the initiative for social housing and assisting, but there's a line dealing with the rental housing components and dealing with the social housing and Hamilton housing, et cetera. So, I won't deny that I have rental properties, that I want to be transparent, and I'm following the rules.
And I appreciate that you're doing that, but the voice of our community is absent at the table when it comes to rental properties moving forward. I think it's going to play an important and more important role in the overall mixture of affordable housing solutions in Hamilton, and you're simply not there.
Well,
and you can't be there, and that's fine, but you're not being part of a complete conversation on affordable housing because you can't participate in that component.
Response?
Respectfully, I've stated where I stand and what my position is. I'm not denying that I have a conflict, and I'm very confident in the council colleagues around the table on their initiatives and decisions going forward. And we all support the needs for housing and good housing, affordable housing, et cetera, in the city of Hamilton. So I'm confident that maybe not only myself, but a number of my other colleagues have also declared conflict. So it's not just Ward 10 that has not had a voice at the table on this, but I'm confident that our colleagues who do have that and can do that, carry it forward, are doing that on our behalf as well.
Candidate Pearson, very quickly, Candidate Beattie, before we have to go.
Sure, and I mean, I noticed that Lou's being quiet in this. I know he's a landlord as well. He has rental properties, so I mean, we'd be changing up one absent voice for another if we move forward in that particular direction. So,
okay, I should respond to that.
By all means, quickly, please.
I don't have residential rental properties. I have commercial buildings.
Thank you very much. Listen, lots of conversation. If you want to know more about these candidates, please do your homework, educate yourself, go to their websites, because unfortunately, our time with the candidates has run out. Once again, they are candidate Jeff Beattie, Louis Milojevic, and Maria Pearson. That's it for our Ward 10 debate. Remember, it's our Hamilton, it's our vote, and Election Day is October 24th. You can find everything you need to know, including a list of all the candidates running for City Council, as well as the public and Catholic school boards on the City of Hamilton website at hamilton.ca/elections. Please get out and vote, whether in person or by mail-in ballot. Then join us that evening for all your local election results. A reminder that you can find a complete schedule of all the remaining election debates on our website at cable14.com/elections. And you'll want to make sure you join us next Tuesday, September 27th, starting at 7 for the live mayoral debate. I'm Mike Fortune. Thank you very much for joining us.